Hardpoint. Capture the objectives.
Yo, what is up, guys? Methodz here, bring you guys a new video. Today we have a hardpoint Yemen versus Team Denial. I think I
Hold forward.
drop about 32 kills and end up dying about 11 times, so not too
Losing the
bad of a
fight.
gameplay. But today I want to talk about how I got into competitive gaming. I did one of these videos back in MW3. I really didn't have any fan base back then. I think the video got like
Hardpoint is
500
ours.
views, and back then I only think I
We've
had
taken the
1K
lead.
subs. So a lot of you guys asked, Methods, how did
Hardpoint
you get into
contested.
competitive Call of Duty? So here's that video, and I hope you guys enjoy. So
Reloading.
basically, I started playing Call of Duty 4 on the PlayStation 3. I used to play at my friend's house. He lived next door, and he had an Xbox, and I used to play Call of Duty 4 on his account. And obviously, I used to be awful. And I ended up buying a PS3. Well, no,
Hardpoint
actually,
locked down.
Santa Claus bought me a PS3 for Christmas, and I also got Call of Duty 4. My aunt got it for me. And I started grinding it. I was really enjoying it. Obviously, I sucked because I really didn't play that
Hardpoint
much, and
identified.
it was like my first time
Enemy
playing it.
down.
And I enjoyed myself. I used to go play campaign thinking that that was the big thing and that was what everybody played. Then I discovered it online, and I was like, so basically I can play against people all across the world. And keep in mind, right now I'm only
Hardpoint
15,
contested.
and think about when Call of Duty 4 was out.
Hardpoint
That
is
was at
ours.
least 4 or 5 years ago. So I think I was about 9, 10, 11, somewhere in that age. And I just loved playing, and I would come home from school, play. I'd go in the pool, come back inside, and play. And that's pretty much where it got started. And eventually, in a public match, I
Hardpoint
met my,
contested.
pretty much my best friend ever throughout gaming. His gamer tag or PSN was I will pwn you, and mine was Hawks42 because the name of my team, my baseball team, was the Hawks, and my number was 42. So that's how I got my first PSN. And his thing was, I will pwn you. We just met in a pub, and
Hardpoint
we were both
identified.
squeakers back then. So
Hostiles
we're
have
like,
captured the
hey man, what's
hardpoint.
going on? And he introduced me to game battles, and we started doing doubles. And I used things like the mini Uzi silenced golden, and I pretty much used all gold guns because people used to boost in headshots and like the 1v1 cage match thing, and having a gold camo was like, oh my god, that's sick. And I use the MP5 and the M16 sometimes,
Hardpoint
but
locked
my
down.
overall two weapons I loved using was the mini Uzi silenced and the M4 carbine Blue Tiger because I actually got that one legit. And I just started playing game battles, and I was really liking it. And we used to do the thing where we name a team like Remix, and we go on Google, Remix logos, and it was just funny back then how much things have changed. And we used to have
We've
NFL
lost
teams as
control.
our logos. We used to go to Google, type it in. There was actually a logo app or website you can go to called like Game Battles Logo Maker, and they looked absolutely terrible. But
Hardpoint
that back then you
identified.
were like, oh my god, this
Hostiles have
logo is
captured the
sick.
hardpoint.
And
Hardpoint
we used to
locked down.
change our gamer tags. I remember one time I was like homicidal, he was like suicidal. So, we did those things. I think I was like Remix
We've
Hawks, and
taken
he
the
was like
lead.
Remix Energy, something like that. We
Hardpoint
did
contested.
that stuff where we changed our PSNs in order to play doubles. And moving on, I got World at War. And this is when I'm pretty good now because I've been playing a lot. And here's where I started getting into competitive gaming.
Hardpoint
Not really
contested.
pick up scrims or anything, but more along the lines of more serious game battles where I played against and played with people who were actually quite good. And I was actually a radar player. I got at the team called Aftershock. I also played no radar, but radar was what I was really good at. And it was a team called Aftershock. It was like me, Fuego, Ambucks, Beefer, Backpack. We were like 50-0. We were pretty nasty. Also, my friend Delfini, who's also one of my good gaming buds, was on it.
Hardpoint identified.
And I pretty much have my set crew of World at
Hostile
War
storm
friends.
missile
It was
awaiting orders.
me, Delfini, Lennox, Timberly, and Energy,
Friendly
who
Hellstorm
is
missile
I will
inbound.
pwn you. And we just play all day and have a good time. We would go into pubs for fun, and then we do like 2v2 scrims for fun, see who the better duo was. And looking back on those days, where I could play zombies and have fun, and not have to worry about getting on the scrim. I just miss it a lot. I had a friend called Baseball Rules X42 or 24, and I was really good friends with that kid. We played zombies all the time, and I wonder how he's doing. I always think back to these old people who pretty much started my career. I'm like, I wonder how these people are doing. I hope they're doing well. I hope to actually catch up with them one day, but it's a very rare possibility that I'm gonna be able to talk to them again. And I miss it, and I sort of miss being a little kid.
Hardpoint
You guys are
identified.
saying you're only 15, but I miss being 10, 11, 12. Moving on though, so in the middle of PS3
Hardpoint contested.
MW2, I actually got an Xbox for Christmas. My parents decided to buy me an Xbox, and I played on like a really big tube TV just because, um, I have my PS3 set up in my bedroom, and I also played on
Lightning
a
strike
tube
coordinates
TV
are
on
sent
that, and
inbound.
I sort of miss playing
Hardpoint is ours.
PS3 just because all the people I
Hardpoint
met, and that's pretty
contested.
much where I started. I actually do
Hardpoint is
still have my
ours.
PS3, so maybe I'll hop on it one day and play
Hardpoint
with some
contested.
fans. You never know.
Hardpoint is ours.
And so yeah, like I started getting a lot better when I got my Xbox, and I started playing a lot more when I got my Xbox, just because like my real life friends and a lot of my gamer friends from PS3 actually got an Xbox for Christmas, so we played Xbox together. I remember my first couple days playing Xbox. I
Hardpoint
played
identified.
with Blake Force 1. We played MW2 radar, one
Hellstorm
man army
missile awaiting
enabled. So
orders.
that's where you can have unlimited nades because you can keep switching your class.
Friendly
And I remember
Hellstorm
having
missile
so much
inbound.
fun. And in MW2, I was a really good radar player. I played Radar No Perks and
Hardpoint
Radar
contested.
OMA, which is Radar One Man Army, and I was
Hardpoint
like a
contested.
top 5 Radar player for No Perks and like a top 10 Radar player for One Man Army, and I was on all these good
Hardpoint is
teams with
ours.
me, Zubin,
Hardpoint
Nubin,
contested.
Z Zeron, Zaps, Checky,
Hardpoint is ours.
and I think I teamed with Checky
Hardpoint
and Depict a
contested.
couple times. They were like the two main Radar No Perks players.
Hardpoint
Their
contested.
teams always 100-0 and stuff. And I just loved playing. That was back when there would be like
Hardpoint
an
is ours.
18-man lobby pickup scrim where there's 6 teams of 3 and the loser leaves. It was just so fun, and I miss those days so much because so much has changed. Now with Twitter, it used to be all
Hardpoint
game battles
identified.
forums. And moving on to no, what was the next game? Black Ops 1? Yeah, Black Ops 1. I started playing pickup scrims a bit. I never really got developed in the community. And Black Ops 1, when I started being like a fanboy, I used to message other pro players saying, add me, please, blah, blah, blah.
Lightning
And
strike
thinking
coordinates
back
were
on it,
sent
people
inbound.
still rag on me for that and, rip on me for it. But I can't change that. And I was like 12, 13 years old when I did that crap. And I just miss playing, with
Hostile
friends
lightning
where I could
strike
have
inbound.
fun, not being
Hardpoint is
stressed about,
ours.
going to an event and waking up early, catching my flight, stripping with my team all the
Hardpoint locked
time, and
down.
I can just generally
Hardpoint
enjoy the game.
contested.
And it was back when I can get on whenever I want, and all my friends were online. Like it was just such a fun time. Moving on to MW3 is when I started playing competitive gaming. My first ever actual impact at competitive is winning the Godzilla event with Nade Shot, Scump, and BL Fire, and that's what pretty much
Hardpoint
started me. I remember
identified.
Nade Shot giving me a shout out, and I gained like 800 followers, and I was so happy. And back then I think Nade Shot had like maybe 40K followers, maybe more, I forget, but like it's crazy to see how much that man grew too. Over time flies, man. Like I remember Godzilla like it was
Hardpoint locked
yesterday. That
down.
was like my first ever,
Hardpoint contested.
sort of major LAN event with these good players, and I was so happy to win that. And I started playing a lot. My team was Blast Radius with me, Saint, BL Fire, and Subby, and we were like a really good amateur team. We were like one of the top amateur teams, not were maybe the best, and we played all the time. We actually loved teaming together until I got
Hardpoint
dropped
contested.
because my attitude was awful back then. I was a
Objective
little
almost
cocky kid,
complete. Don't quit now.
and I think I actually grew up a lot more, and I'm actually not like that anymore. I'm still a little cocky. I can admit that,
Friendly
and I do
lightning strike
have
inbound.
rage issues. Well, I
Hardpoint
really don't rage.
identified.
I just get really mad that I start complaining. And and now I'm here. I mean, Black Ops 2, my
Hostiles have
first ever
captured the
MLG
hardpoint.
events, Dallas and Anaheim. I
Friendly
placed
Hellstorm
7th
missile
and
inbound.
5th. So pro, my first ever 2 events. And UMG Chicago, 5th place. Knocking
Check your
complexity into the
timeline.
losers bracket was one of my favorite moments in my gaming history.
Friendly
But
Wolverine
this gameplay is
deployed.
coming to an end. I thank you guys for watching. Make sure to drop a like, comment, and
Task
subscribe if you
accomplished.
enjoyed.
No
And
survivors.
yeah, guys, thanks for watching. I'm out. Peace.